Welcome everybody again to another Ally Community Forum Series event. This is our final panel of the series. It's been a great series so far. We've had a lot of interesting speakers talking range of accessibility and inclusive design topics. And here we're kind of joined by really some of our campus leaders who have been instrumental in rolling out Ally on their campuses, thinking innovatively about instructor messaging, thinking about how do you get the message out, raise awareness, and really kind of build the impact of Ally and of an inclusive learning initiative in general. Obviously, for many campuses, a new endeavor. Certainly accessibility offices have existed for a long time, but in some ways they've kind of been separate or on the boundaries, and now really trying to fold that in a proactive kind of way. And so I'm going to let each of the panelists introduce themselves a little and what they've been doing around accessibility. So I'll start off with Eric from Grand Valley State University.
Well, hello everyone. My name is Eric Kunnen. I am an Associate Director of eLearning and Emerging Technologies at Grand Valley State University. And we have a team of 10 of us here at GVSU focused on supporting faculty and working with instructional design, digital media development, and instructional technology. So we are here on mission to support faculty.
Thank you, Eric, and I'll pass it over to Christopher at Tacoma Community College. They are one of our early adopters of Ally.
Hey everybody, I'm the Director of eLearning, and we've done a lot with around accessibility. We're doing a lot of this work before Ally came about, and Ally has certainly made that job a lot easier. All of our staff in the eLearning department are paid for through the eLearning fee, and so the students are our foremost and primary people that we serve, and so everything we do is to look towards their benefit, as well as working with faculty, which therefore benefits students. So yeah, that's me.
Thank you, Christopher, and then I will pass it over to Dina at Alvin Community College.
Hello everybody, this is Dina Coots. I'm the Director of Distance Education at Alvin Community College down on the coast of Texas. We're a small community college, and I would say our first dive into accessibility was more of a reactive stance, where we were having to go into individual courses and fix things, and I started seeing problems, and my vice president asked me, well, how bad is our problem? And I couldn't answer that question across the board without individually going into every course to decide that. So I came upon Ally a couple of years ago at Blackboard World Conference, and someone demonstrated this and said, look, we can give you an idea overall of what your accessibility issues are. And that's what introduced me to Ally and really got me excited about thinking, because I have this information, we can really begin to tackle this problem and do a wonderful job with accessibility and be proactive rather than the reactivity we had in the past.
Wonderful, Dina, and that really, I think, gets at the first question around kind of motivations for investing in a tool like Ally, and if there are other tools that are in your toolkit so far for kind of supporting accessibility. Maybe you can elaborate a little bit, Dina, on kind of what you were doing before Ally, and any tools that you had in place or processes that you had in place, and really kind of what was that key motivator for moving towards Ally and getting started with Ally.
We used a lot of just open source materials using Microsoft Office and the supports that they had, but really they're not sufficient for all of our needs with accessibility. And the primary decision to move to this was because we did get a good vision at where we were with accessibility. We were able to identify, our top 5 largest offenders there and start tackling our approach, based on the information and the data coming out of Ally. So really, Ally has been another tool that we've added to the arsenal, but I really initially appreciated the ability to look holistically at the institution and then be able to scale down and start working individually with areas that needed our attention.
And Christopher, you mentioned that you all were taking a pretty active approach to accessibility prior to Ally. Do you want to talk a little bit about maybe some of the tools and approaches?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, especially as an early adopter of Ally, what motivated that initial foray?
Yeah, one of the things we offer as the eLearning department is to do an accessibility review for faculty of their courses. So if they say, please check out my course. And so what we do is we would go through their course, click by click, page by page, everything, top to bottom, and then give them help fix it, sort of fix it for them if we can, you know, work with the publisher if we need to, you know, whatever it took to make that course accessible. And we were using Census Access to convert files, and we also had ReadSpeaker integrated for the reading the text on the pages within Canvas. But I was really looking for something that was more integrated with the learning management system. I felt like there was a big gap there where we'd have to go through a course from top to bottom, every single page, every single file, you know, run it through, run the PDF through Adobe Pro to see if it you know, if it needed to have OCR run over it, and so it was just a very time-consuming process that our staff did. And Ally really, because it's so integrated, has given faculty more. They're able to do a lot more with it themselves, and then it's certainly. What a big motivator was to save my staff time as they're going to reviewing courses and fixing things in them.
Yeah, that integrated aspect of Ally seems like a really key piece of it. It seems that a lot of the other tools were maybe a little bit separated or a little bit harder to work into those workflows. And so, Eric, was that something that you also were considering? Is kind of the way that Ally very kind of tightly integrated into your learning management system?
Absolutely, just echoing everything Christopher said as well. I think. Well, since it's Halloween, we needed some X-ray glasses, I think, to get into our courses and to really figure out where we were. I think Ally for us was key. I think in three areas. One was just generating awareness. You know, faculty at large, they don't really know about accessibility and don't really know, you know, why inclusive education is that important. So, you know, generating awareness was one of the key aspects through the indicators that Ally provides. Another was just building capacity. You know, because faculty aren't in large part aware of how to, you know, make documents accessible. Not only not knowing if their documents are accessible, but actually the process of, you know, working with, you know, Word or PDFs or even adding alt text to an image, having the on-screen guidance was really helpful. And then I think at an institutional level, just, you know, providing the due diligence and oversight that's needed to answer the question, what is our level of accessibility at GVSU? So those three areas were key, and I think it's really been helpful to shine the spotlight on engaging with faculty in unique ways to improve the accessibility, which actually helps. I think someone mentioned it earlier too. You know, the efficiency and the effectiveness. I mean, we have a disability support resources office that does work with students to provide accommodations, but oftentimes they'll go into a course and they don't really know how many documents are in there, what level of accessibility are those documents, and so I think it gives our DSR office sort of a leg up as well.
Yeah, I would like to also concur with Eric about the awareness. Our faculty simply had not been trained in accessibility. So this has opened a dialogue. Not only is it helping them to learn to correct issues that already exist, but now they're understanding when they create documents from ground up, they're being aware of what needs to be done for accessibility. So rather than having to go back and correct issues, they're learning how to take care of things when they create original documents. So the awareness component has been amazing. And even things they don't know how to fix, they're coming to us now, where in the past, no one was coming to us saying, please help us with accessibility. But because this tool is there, even if they can't figure out how to correct it with the, you know, the online instructions, they're reaching out for help. So the awareness is a wonderful component of Ally.
Yeah, just kind of building off from that, we discovered that faculty don't like seeing red. You know, even though they might grade with red pens, they themselves don't really like the red, right? So just having that visibility has been helpful.
Christopher, do you want to chime in a little bit there? And I think this gets to the piece of, introducing Ally to your campus, right? So you kind of purchase it and you turn it on, and now these indicators show up in an instructor's course. What were some of the strategies that you all used in your messaging around Ally and helping instructors to not only build the awareness, but then kind of take the next step as far as, okay, I've got a bunch of red indicators.
Yeah, so there were a few things. So we were actually working on accessible technology and electronic content policy right at the time. So there was a lot of discussion amongst faculty as we were forming the policy. And so this sort of accessibility, well, we talked to it for many years, sort of came to the forefront as the policy was working its way to the various committees around campus. And then right at that time, we introduced Ally. Hey, we got this tool, check it out. Certainly, like you mentioned, some faculty really just didn't want to see the red anymore. They just wanted to fix it. But one of the key things that we did was I thought, how can I make this fun? Because accessibility can be a lot of work. So I introduced this gamification challenge for faculty, where if they did certain things, they earned points. So if they made their syllabus accessible, they got 25 points. If they captioned all the videos in their course, they got 50 points. If they made their entire course from top to bottom accessible, that's 100 points. And there was other various things in there, like working with us on different innovative things. Like AR and VR, anyways. But so they with those points, they were able to earn things like the very top item was this indefinite checkout from our from our college. But essentially, they were able to use this an iPad Pro, the new big 12.9-inch iPad Pro, which with our learning management system, they were able to use the Apple Pencil with to do grading on, and as well as some other prizes. And so it really motivated a lot of people to come to us, to get help, to learn more about accessibility, and try and make it a little bit more fun, especially with the leaderboard. And we had some competitive people trying to get to the top of the leaderboard too, not just to earn prizes, but to be the best and all that. So that was sort of one of our ways, my ways to try and make this not just a burden, as some people might see it, which I
Yeah, and for those of you who haven't seen it, Christopher actually worked with us to do a case study about his gamification approach. I'll drop the link into the chat to that, but that goes into some detail about the system that they devised and results that they've been seeing in kind of motivating instructors. Eric, I know in following you on Twitter and your blogs that you're very active in your messaging and you put a lot of content out there. Has that been a main strategy for you as far as kind of raising awareness for instructors? And how has that initial kind of moments been, both kind of challenges as well as maybe opportunities and successes with instructors?
Yes and yes. I will have to say I love the iPad Pro idea. We have it's tough communicating with faculty. When we have close to 1,700 faculty here. We have the same as many of you probably with, newsletters and our web page, and we have a blog, and we try to tweet things. Not sure our campus is heavy into social media as far as the faculty go, but we still do what we can to share through Facebook, Twitter, and our website. We found more success just in communicating directly through our Blackboard portal. So we have a special little announcements module there for faculty. So as they're logging in to work with their courses, create an announcement, upload a document, whatever. We found great success in using the notification area there in the portal, quite visible to faculty. So we had the Ally indicators there. So as they were seeing indicators in their courses, they maybe had some connection there. But we've also have had the same challenges there. While we do what we can to communicate, we still to a large degree need to work on promotion, need to continue to remind faculty that this tool is available. One of the successful things that we found is just overall, as online and hybrid courses continue to grow and expand, that our faculty learning communities that we have wrapped around that are very we have a lot of faculty that are engaged in that, and that's been a good sort of I guess we have an air war, which is like social media and web and email, and we also have a ground war where we're kind of working directly with faculty in a face-to-face setting. So we've done what we can, and then on the student end, we're just really happy that just this week we were able to get on the front page of the Grand Valley Lanthorn, which is a student newspaper, and promoted some of the Ally capabilities there for students and for faculty, and it allowed us an opportunity to get the word out. The next thing we're going to do is maybe sacrifice just a few small trees and do a kind of a paper mailing. I mean, it's one of those things where some of those, I mean, kind of a postcard, nothing really huge, but just to try to get faculty to actually touch a piece of paper and actually interact with it. Whether or not those end up in the waste can or the recycle bin, I mean, that's the way it is, but we just need to use whatever strategy that we have. I've also participated in a variety of campus meetings. Just yesterday we had an academic, what was it? It's an academic governance committee. It's called the ADA Advisory Council, and so whatever team or committee or anything that I can get on, I usually take a few moments, bring some Blackboard Ally stickers with me and some data, and kind of use that as an opportunity to promote the tool, to promote just the idea culturally of inclusive education.
Eric, just Christopher mentioned drafting an accessibility policy. Do you guys have an accessibility policy kind of formalized at GVSU?
Yes, we do. We have more of a general web accessibility policy that kind of sort of covers everything. And then our academic senate did pass a video captions. It's not really policy, but it's more of guidelines. So, as far as video content, there's 3 areas in that document which I think is helpful. One is, yes, it must be captioned. Absolutely. The second is captioning is sort of optional because the audience is smaller, or the audience is protected within a course and not public. But you really should probably caption that if you have time. And then the third is this is just a point-to-point student-to-student feedback or faculty-to-student feedback video element. You're not going to reuse it. The student doesn't need an accommodation. You don't need to caption that one. So it has some helpful guidelines in it.
Christopher Phillips asking, is that captioning policy publicly available?
Yes, I can dig that up and post it in the chat.
Yeah, that would be great. And I can't remember, Christopher, did we link to your accessibility policy in your case study? We might have, but if that's publicly available, I know I get some questions from different campuses about the drafting of a policy, what should be included in that policy. So yeah, if you have that, I think that would be a useful resource for the group. Dina, how has the messaging gone at Alvin? Have you kind of similar types of approaches to what the gentlemen have been talking about?
Well, in general, we've turned it on and said, here we go. So we didn't formalize training plans and roll it out over a 6-month time period. We turned it on in the spring last year and made them aware at a couple of little meetings during our convocation time that we came together that the new tool was in there and to be watching for it. I did one thing though. I encouraged them to fix one thing that semester, because it's overwhelming when you first open a class if you're not sure and you see all of these red, they call them gas gauges where we are. So what's going on with the red gas gauges? So in order for them not to feel overwhelmed, we were already in a culture of dynamic change going on. We did fruit basket turnover with our administration, and every policy and procedure that we had known for years changed. So faculty were already resistant to any new or any change. So I treaded very lightly when I introduced this to them. But I found that to be a really effective approach with the faculty, because many of them, just out of curiosity, would go in and fix something. And my challenge that initial semester was just fix your syllabus. And when they began to fix their syllabi, questions started coming up. And those that figured out how to do a syllabi said, oh, wait, I can also do this Word document, or I can fix this element. So it was really a time just to get comfortable with the tool and how it works. And out of that time, you find people that this really interests. It's really, hey, this was fun for me and I want to know more about it. So we identified what we called faculty champions, accessibility champions. And I provided them more in-depth training. Actually, Blackboard has a wonderful course they offer for accessibility. And I took this group of 10 faculty members and added them to this course for additional training. And now we're finding just small work groups building up. Oh, did you want to know something about fixing headers in your Word document? Professor so-and-so is really good at that. So we're finding these little small work teams are developing over time here. When we came back after the summer to continue this idea, I did just a campaign with large stickers that said, what's your one thing? To further encourage them, now that spring is gone and you fix your syllabus, what are you going to do next? And with that thought, I send out weekly emails through our portal and also through our email system to say, hey, maybe this will be your one thing. Have you thought about putting alternative descriptions on your images? And I do a short little video or tutorial showing them how to do that. So I'm kind of dividing the training, if you will, into small little bits. And then I find that if I constantly encourage and send the post out through the portal, the faculty really are being engaged with this now, as long as we don't say, hey, everybody go have this fixed by next spring or you're out of here. So to not have that attitude, I think, has worked very well, and the campaigning is going well right now because I see an increase in the accessibility of our digital material. So I'm really thrilled with how it's going so far.
Thanks, Dina. Krista Greer, did you have a question you wanted to jump in there with?
Sorry, hit the wrong button.
Well, Dina, I love the gas gauges. That seems very appropriate for Texas. So I imagine that resonated quite well with the faculty there. I'm curious, among the three of you, and Dina, maybe you can start, is there's a big fear among campuses that I talk to about turning on Ally and getting faculty resistance, right? And Eric kind of mentioned they don't like to receive red marks, even though they give out red marks. Did you get any nasty emails like, what are you doing in my course and why are these things showing up? Or were people pretty receptive and pretty okay with the presence of Ally?
I'd say initially we were probably split right down the middle with this. Some folks understood the need for this and got in there right away, but of course I had a lot of resistance. And one of the biggest things that I heard was, is this my job? How come, the Office of Disability Services can't just handle all this for us? So we've learned and we've talked with them and we've tried to make, assuage their fears, but one person can't tackle all this. So I appealed to them as a part of an institution, as a part of people who are involved in student success. Don't all of our students have the right to have accessible, wonderful course materials? And I also approached it not just for students with special needs, but talked about the universal design for learning, and that when we create these learning environments, we are actually supporting a multitude of students. A lot of our students taking advantage of the tools in Ally don't have stated disabilities. These are students who are finding these accommodations to be very helpful for their own success. So appealing to that side, that these are not just accommodations, well, I'll use the word accommodations, for students with these stated disabilities, but this is affecting all of our students in a positive way. So I think some of the fears are going down now as time goes by. The gas gauges being there, I remind them, students aren't seeing any of this. And yes, I did have the people who are like, I've got to be a 100%, and they will call me every semester. If that gas gauge goes down to 99, then I'm in trouble. So yes, you do have those folks that are gung-ho and getting into it. And the other folks I see coming along, peer pressure is a wonderful thing sometimes, but as I see that they can tackle it one step at a time, those folks are beginning to understand the need. I also got a little bit of flack for programs who'd say, well, we don't have any students in our program who have disabilities. And well, that tickled me a little bit, because that means you don't have any students who have stated a disability in your program. And besides that, are we going to again be reactive to this process? Or are we going to be proactive? Why can't all of our courses and all of the materials that are out there already be ready for whomever comes into our courses and whomever comes to our institution? So appealing to them from that approach seems to be helping some of the negative feedback that I initially got. Oh, I'd also like to add that we as an institution are all working on this. So no one said, Professor so-and-so, you have to go in your class and work on your stuff. People from my department pitch in and help. We've got administrative assistants around campus who are pitching in and helping with their divisions. So I would say that we have gathered our team as the entire campus and made sure that everybody has this responsibility, not just the individual instructor. And that also made our instructors feel a little bit better that you are not solely responsible for this, that we are here to help as a team.
Yeah, that collective effort seems like it's really important piece. And Christopher, just in talking with you through when we were working on your case study, and you were mentioning it earlier, it sounds like to kind of ease some of those maybe instructor anxieties, your team has really taken a pretty active role in supporting them with their content remediation and such. How did you guys as a team, prepare yourselves to provide that kind of support? What kind of role did the team play in really supporting the instructor?
Yeah, well, we sort of, everybody in the support team just learned together all the different things that we need to do. We all sort of had a baseline understanding around that, but we certainly all grew as we started making this as more of an offering in our support services. As we worked with faculty on the course design, making that a part of the upfront work, saying, hey, let's think about how we should make this accessible from the get-go. But there's obviously a lot of courses already created, so focusing on that remediation. And so my staff were all enthusiastic about it. They really felt like they wanted to help students, and this was a great thing for us to do. And so everybody was all on board, learning more, learning together, learning with faculty, and really growing that service. One of the other ways I've been trying to encourage faculty to think about other ways as it's going to benefit is, we've got like half our students using the mobile app for our learning management system. And a lot of the things that we're doing, like taking this in accessible PDF, maybe we make this a page in Canvas instead, so that it renders well on mobile and it's accessible. And so it's gonna pass an ally. When you see those, you're not gonna see that red meter anymore. And so thinking about other ways, like this is going to work great on your phone or your students' phones. And so thinking about other ways to encourage them, as well as I've been really big about taking the message that faculty can take this in small bites. Let's start with your syllabus. So we offer workshops to just start with your syllabus, and then they can take those skills and apply that to other things as they're building them. There's somebody in our Access Services office that has been, his message has really been about lawsuits. This is the law, and that's all true, and I'm all on board with that. But I've been really focused on, it's okay if it takes a little time. Let's all work on this together, and we've made huge progress since we started with Ally. In 2 years, we went from 45% accessible content in Canvas to a 75%. And so there's really positive efforts, working over time, working with faculty, building those relationships instead of just saying this is the law. I think has really been to the benefit of this accessibility work.
Yeah, and I know Christopher Phillips on the call there is probably very excited to hear that some of your staff have taken PDFs and converted them into HTML pages. I know that's a passion and a big part of his initiative at USU, and it certainly makes a big difference on that mobile front. Eric, are you finding in your messaging trying to draw from kind of these UDL concepts and pushing on the mobile? Has that been a strategy for you? And also, have there been any specific points of resistance or frustration from faculty? And how are you maybe trying to think about, alleviating some of that pushback, or what's been the experience? Because you're probably, dealing with larger scale in some cases. So I'm just curious what it's been like for you so far.
Yeah, just echoing everything that's been said already. I mean, I think, well, let me start here first. So I think, Blackboard Ally was more of a kind of a natural fit, both culturally and strategically at GVSU. I mean, like for example, next week, the university has a teach-in event. It's a sort of a mini conference on the topic of inclusion and equity, and they've been running that for 4 years. You know, our campus vision statement has a commitment to providing an inclusive learning environment. Our GVSU, one of our GVSU values is inclusiveness. You know, strategically, we have a GVSU 2021 strategic plan, and there's multiple objectives in that area, in that strategic plan that connect directly to accessibility. So I feel like, you know, when talking with faculty, they may not know at a high level all these things that are happening, but if we really truly are trying to create a pathway of inclusion, UDL is hugely important to that, and providing opportunities for students to access content in a multitude of ways is important. You know, and I think recently we've done a survey as well. We rolled this out June 21 of the summer. We turned it on, but as you can imagine with summer, I mean, you have less students here, there's less faculty, and so, you know, our first really full semester is the semester we're in right now. So we're, you know, just past midterms, you know, so we're just, you know, kind of getting our feet wet. I did send a survey to our faculty, our early adopter faculty. So those faculty that actually clicked on a dial, you know, so they've done actually the first part, which is, what is this dial? Let me click on it. And, you know, to be honest with you, the survey feedback is helpful to us, but it was, you know, like for me, when I look at this tool, I'm like, isn't this the best thing since sliced bread? I mean, this is awesome, you know. So I think, you know, communicating how awesome it is what we need to kind of continue to focus on. Initially, I think the reaction among faculty, I'm just looking at some of the data here. So we asked them, you know, when you are using the online tips and suggestions that Ally provides you, and how would you rate those, you know, and 40% either rated good or excellent, another 32% was average, and some open-ended comments around that was, you know, there were, hopefully I'm not jumping ahead in our panel here, but for an item that we're going to talk a little bit later is, you know, they're just a desire of more information on how to, you know, how to work with things, because some of the tips and feedback is, you know, it says coming soon, right? You know, another thing we asked them is, you know, how effective do you feel like Ally is, you know, as an accessibility solution for measuring your content and identifying your content? And I expected, you know, a really high rate of response, and they're like, oh yes, this is the best, this is the awesomest tool. But you know, we were hovering around 75%, you know, saying, yeah, this is helpful to me. And I think where we are with that, if I was just kind of, I guess, anecdotally or maybe putting my 2 cents into, you know, interpreting some of these results, is they're still trying to grab hold of this idea of an importance of the accessibility in and of itself, and just seeing this a little bit more as more work rather than the right thing to do. And so I think doing what we can to connect the messaging around, you know, you might see this as something that's extra, but it actually benefits all students. And, you know, I would say all of our faculty, the reason that they're teaching is because they care about students and they want them to be successful. So, you know, I think connecting all those pieces strategically all the way down through, you know, we are here for students and supporting them is where we are focusing our time. And, you know, offering up some of the insight too at the dashboard level, at the administrative level, it's been helpful for us too to have consistent messaging. As someone mentioned earlier, I think it might have been Christopher, just, you know, this is a campus-wide initiative. You know, this is not something that's just the faculty, that's just our e-learning team, that's just our disability support resources office. It's everyone, you know. And so I think one of the things I like about the approach that we're taking is that, you know, it's a community, you know, it takes a village to do some of this work. And I feel like, you know, we have a lot of buy-in from the administration, but also buy-in as a culture. We're heavy into inclusion and equity here. We have a whole division of our institution that's called Division of Inclusion and Equity. So, and accessibility is part of that. So I think it's been pretty successful. I just think we need to continue with messaging.
Yeah,
And I think one other thing, one of just the side comments here, hopefully I'm not jumping too far ahead, just the reality of, you know, some of the times you're not able to get to 100%, you know, depending on what the document is, what the content is. We've had, you know, some faculty that teach math and chemistry. I mean, it's just hard to communicate with math electronically. I mean, you have latex, but latex was built for print, for creating math equations for print. And then, approaching MathML, I mean, that is a potential solution, but there's some room to grow in there as well. So, it's just, taking steps one at a time, I think, is where we need to focus. And, and then each student, of course, that has even a documented disability, the reality is not all of these accommodations or alternative files will satisfy their needs, and that's why we need to have more of an individualized student approach through the work of our DSR office.
Christopher, do you want to just chime in a little bit there? You mentioned math type there to create accessible math content, and this is definitely an area that comes up a lot in conversations with campuses.
Yes, please elaborate.
Sure, yeah. I would say math is probably like the hardest thing to make fully accessible. I mean, one of the more difficult courses we ever did actually was an art course, because it had like hundreds of images that we had to describe with alt text without giving away the answer. But when, certainly the math is one of the more difficult ones. There's a variety of ways, like something like 3D printing of so you could feel the graphs and charts on paper. But we're working with an instructor over the summer who wanted to, he was working through us with our Quality Matters training, and he was like, hey, so I want to make all of my math content accessible. I'm going through a course redesign. What should I use? And so we investigated, and we purchased him a subscription to the math type. So it integrates with Word, and so he's instead of using Word's built-in equation editor, he's building all of his math equations using math type. And so it's a ton of work to do all of that. But since he was like, since I was already remaking it anyways, I might as well do it right. And so he's actually hosting some, sponsoring some trainings, offering some free lunch, and he's leading the workshops. So for professional development around for our STEM faculty on using that type. And so we'll probably get more people that will be interested in building that. So it's just starting with one instructor, and we're going to grow from there.
Very cool. Dina, I'm curious. So, and this kind of lends into Krista's question in the chat there, and also building off what Eric was talking about, which is, when there isn't guidance there for the instructor, and a big one that I get that comes to me is instructors, they have an untagged PDF, and they're really pissed that there's no guidance there, right? You're asking them to go to original, but the PDF for them was the original because they got it from someplace. Is in your approach, in kind of the one thing at a time, very kind of iterative approach, have you kind of told instructors like, don't worry about that content right now, or is that something that your team is taking up? And then to just pull in Krista Greer's question, have any of you outsourced any of your remediation to an external source or something like that?
Well, for us, my approach has been, don't worry, calm down, it's going to be all right. So let's fix the things we can fix first. So if you are just worried about the one thing like the PDF and you can't get it tagged and you can't get to the original, for us, because we're new at this, we're within our first year of the adoption, my approach is to say, let's get the things that we can fix now, and then we'll start working on the more advanced. The reporting feature in Ally was really helpful with that, because I could get and identify the top offenders using that reporting, so we can tackle, if things like adding an alt text, that happened to be our #1 problem that we had. Well, that's an easy problem to fix, and I can instruct most people on how to fix that very quickly. So, by eat an elephant one bite at a time, that approach seems to really be working. And if there are things we are not trained to fix, because I've run into things that were beyond what I knew to do and how to help, so that buys me a little bit of time to dig in and find what kind of assistance I can be, or if I need to go to the ODS office and get some more experienced help there. But really to encourage them to, let's fix the things you can, and to help them be invested in that progress. I know Eric mentioned the increase that they're already seeing with Ally and their digital materials, I like to make sure the faculty are aware of this. As we started, they had a starting point, and I want them to know that their fix one thing or their small investment overall in the institution is making an impact. So I think it's also important to share with them and get them vested in the interest and the growth of this contribution that they're making. So I hope that addresses that a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. And Eric, maybe I'll swing back to you here, since Dina mentioned the institutional report, and that can, I think, be a pretty critical tool for an institution getting that high level kind of overview of the accessibility issues. Are you leveraging the institutional report right now, and in what ways are you looking to leverage that?
Same as Dina, we are using some of the reports just to provide our e-learning team some insight into what areas do we want to hit during our trainings. So, equipped with the knowledge that, tagged PDFs is important, contrast issues are important, alt text images are important, images are important. So we hit these things now in our seminars that when we train faculty. Which actually, as a side, I mean, we've always had sort of not always, for a long time, we've had an accessibility training session that we've done for faculty, but it's not been very well attended. Since deploying Ally, we've increased the attendance in that, which has actually been a great thing, so that faculty are starting to pay attention and then come to our seminars as well. But using the institutional reporting has been helpful too at some of the high-level meetings I've been fortunate to attend recently, like the ADA Advisory Council, our Academic Technology Advisory Committee, and we have a team that's around e-learning strategy for online and hybrid courses. I've been able to share this information with the campus. It's just good numbers. I mean, if you look at just in general, your use of your LMS at your institution, I mean, a lot of people may not be aware, but like when I looked at some of these reports, I mean, it was incredible. I mean, we had 203,000 pieces of content that were scanned by Ally. I mean, that's incredible. 3,700 courses have content in them. So I think sometimes the assumption is, faculty, they do have access to Blackboard, but are they really using it? Well, yeah, they're using it, And so I think it's been helpful, at an administrative level to share some of these data. And it's been interesting too, without much sort of fanfare, students are finding alt formats as well. We had over 837 courses had students accessing 2,862 alternative format files, with PDF being, their most favorite option there to download and use. So, I mean, I really love the reporting because it gives us, the ability to monitor and report back. Another meeting that I attended recently, budgets are tight. I mean, I imagine budgets are tight everywhere. And, it was really difficult to get anything passed through. There was actually a budget cut here last year. So for the university to actually dedicate resources to this important tool, I presented to the budget committee. I said, you provided support for this. I want to let you know how it's going. So these data have been really helpful in that regard as well.
Christopher, you mentioned your increase in score. So are you using that institutional report now, especially having been using Ally for some time, to measure your progress and impact? And what other ways? I think you distributed a survey at some point. How have you been kind of tracking impact and feedback and such?
Yeah, a little while after we launched the tool, we held a student-focused. I offered free lunch and said, "Come tell us what you think about Ally," and then just have been focused on looking at that institutional report and our staff as we go through those accessible course reviews on each course, looking at the course reports. And so yeah, just as I'm reporting out the progress we've made around accessibility, I am looking at that institutional report and it's providing good information. Yes, I always try and provide free food at all events, whatever I do. People seem to like that.
Yes, yeah, nobody turns away free food, that's for sure. Dina, have you you mentioned you've been using the institutional report, and then as far as kind of on the student side, have you been getting any feedback at this point around kind of student usage of the alternative formats, and or do you find that your instructors really see the value in the alternative formats, or is that something that you have to kind of educate them on? But let's maybe shift over to those alternative formats.
Well, sure. I do think that that's something that you have to educate over time. Many of the faculty weren't even aware of the alternative formats that students were downloading in their courses, which kind of tickled me. We're finding that our students are really fond of the MP3 and the EPUB downloads. And that surprised me a little bit too. So that tells me that students are taking learning on the go, that they're downloading it to their mobile devices or, you know, into their phones. So those are our most popular formats. One of my favorite stories, I had a student come back who took a fully online program with us, and he is fully blind, very active in the blind community. And he came back to me this last semester and he says, Miss Dina, I don't know what happened, but Blackboard is so much more accessible. My courses are so much better. So to me, that was one of the wonderful testimonials that we're getting just on the fly. He came by just for that reason, because it was so different than what he experienced a couple of years ago when he started working with us here. So that made me feel really good that we are making some progress. But you'll be surprised the kind of formats that they're downloading and how they're using them. And I love having that information as well. But yes, I did have to notify my faculty so they're aware of the different kinds of downloads that they're using and why students are using them. So they might not be aware that the EPUB or the HTML even, that's another popular one, that the HTML is the format for their phones. So letting faculty know what the different formats are for and how they're being used, that's one of those training experiences we had to have.
Yeah, very cool and very great story about the student there, and talking about how much more accessible his courses have become. That's a great anecdote. Christopher, I know that mobile has been a big push on your campus. Are you seeing students kind of talk about alternative formats as something that they're downloading for mobile? And also, I'm just curious because it came up recently in a question, an institution that already had ReadSpeaker and was thinking about Ally. You know, and we actually use that for people that may not be aware. We use ReadSpeaker's technology to generate our MP3. So are those technologies, are there any key advantages to having one versus the other, or having them both running at the same time?
Sure. So yeah, we had ReadSpeaker before we got Ally, and so I mean, one of the things ReadSpeaker does is it's going to read the text on a page in the learning management system, whereas with Ally, you're going to be able to download the MP3 version of that file, and so ReadSpeaker isn't going to read any files. So that's kind of the main differences between the two. Actually, to make room in my budget, I canceled ReadSpeaker and Census Access to purchase Ally because I felt it provided a lot of benefit to our students. Just can't buy everything all the time, unfortunately. But yeah, what I mean, another thing with the accessible formats, yeah, certainly the MP3 for students that like to listen to stuff while they're driving or on the bus, or yeah, that HTML version, or just general, like, why are instructors using the PDF, these PDFs that don't, you know, you try and open it and you got to pinch to zoom and slide over. It just doesn't work well on your phone. I mean, a lot of the complaints too around like textbook publisher material, stuff that we can't control. I mean, we have a huge push for open educational resources here on our campus. It's a big part of what we do in eLearning. Our students have saved over $3 million in textbook costs with our OER project over the last few years, because we can make that content accessible because it's openly licensed. We can make those modifications. We can make them available to students in the first day. Whereas sometimes with the textbook publishers, we're just beholden to whatever they feel like doing. You know, so one of the things in my gamification is to email your publisher and say, make your stuff accessible from the faculty perspective, because I can say that until the cows come home, but they're not going to pay attention to me. The faculty are deciding on what they're going to use as the resource. That matters. It seems to matter to them. We've had some publishers respond to that, some not. But yeah, students certainly seem to like those different alternative formats so they can download stuff from their phone. When they mentioned those alternative formats, we've been working a lot with a blind student that uses the screen readers exclusively, and he really does like the alternative formats a lot. And that's been a great help to him. He just has found it slightly difficult to navigate to that little drop down, and that's one little feedback. Like if that could be a little more obvious to him as he's screen reading it, that would be cool.
That's good feedback, and it's actually something that I know our designers are thinking about, because even sighted users, that drop down can be pretty, there's a delicate balance for us in keeping it so it's not too invasive, but at the same time students being aware of it. So I'll definitely take that back to the designer. For either of these two blind students that you guys work with, either of them Braille readers? We were talking last week about the electronic Braille format that we generate, but it seems that a lot of students don't have access to a refreshable Braille display. So are they primarily using Ally just for the MP3 download?
Yeah. So one of the blind students we're working with, he says he knows a little bit of Braille, and he used to know more, but he's become so dependent on JAWS and his iPhone that he's lost some of his skill with his with Braille. Although I just recently saw something that isn't available for pre-order yet, but I was looking at it. It was a touchable tablet with a refreshable Braille on it. And it was something, kind of piece of technology I hadn't seen before, so I was going to get that and try that out. I work with him to see if that worked for him.
Oh, that's very cool. Yeah. This was a big point of conversation in our call last week with our accessibility folks, who we're not seeing too much usage of it, partly because the expense of the Braille display. I wonder if the technology that you're seeing is it, do you know, is it a little more cost effective than the refreshable Braille displays?
I want to say it was around $500.
Krista, I think, knew the price points on the refreshable Braille displays. I'm curious, Krista, if you want to drop that in the chat just as a price comparison. Dina, I'm assuming that student that you were working with was also using the MP3 download?
Oh yeah, he works for Apple. He's a big tech guy, and all things MP3 is how he loved to work.
That makes sense. Eric, I kind of lost track. Did you get a chance to chime in on alternative formats? And I know that we recently shared some of your usage stats there about the downloads, and you did mention actually about the number of downloads that you're seeing across these courses. Have you gotten much student feedback to this point?
No, not to this point, and we're just starting to kind of get the word out. We are happy with the numbers, even like I mentioned, without quote advertising. And I will echo the comment that sometimes I think these alternative formats they're kind of buried. Most students aren't gonna notice where they are, or notice them unless someone else tells them that hey, click that little gray drop down box and you'll find some goodies in there. But one of the things I am really happy about is that as I mentioned, just having a culture of inclusion and equity here has helped. And having the student newspaper run an ad has helped communicate that. I'll post that in the chat too, just to kind of give you guys just a heads up as to what potentially if you have student newspapers, that you can maybe encourage your student editors to take notice and to help you promote tools that are not only for faculty but for students themselves. So it's a work in progress here. We're still getting the word out. Majority of our faculty have, we did survey our faculty, have not notified their students. So I think that's one mechanism that can increase usage there of alternative formats, if faculty themselves make their own students in their courses aware that these formats exist. We definitely realize and actually underscore the importance of these alternative formats, especially for students that commute. Having that audio only version is potentially pretty powerful.
Definitely one that we've heard a few times, anecdotes of students that commute in the car for long periods of time, and being able to listen to that MP3 to review seems like a a big win. So we're wrapping down here, end of time. I wanted to just give each of the panelists, you know, just their final thoughts, maybe as far as, you know, what's next for you in kind of, you know, kind of keeping at what you're doing, or what's your next plans as you're moving forward here. So I'll let Dina start off. What's next for you, Dina? And I know you just ran a workshop, and I haven't even got to hear how the workshop went at your T-Bug thing. So I'd be curious, how that went and what's next.
Well, we were in San Antonio, and the theme of our Texas Blackboard Users Group Conference was Finding Your Blackboard Treasure. So I did a full 2-hour pre-con in a pirate costume. So we had an awesome time. The feedback there was amazing. We did a small competition at the end of that presentation to let the participants test out Ally and try to improve some documents in a race to see who could improve the most in the time slot. So we had a really good time with that. My approach here is to carry on with what we're doing. We are taking, you know, one bite at a time. This new what's your one thing that I introduced in the fall? Of course, I have that in their face weekly right now. And my next big move will be this January will be our first full year with Ally. And I'm really excited to share the progress we're making with everyone at the campus. And like I said, I had a group of 10 that we are actively involved in some training in November. So I'm excited to see how these faculty champions and these small work groups will continue to grow. And, you know, just that grassroots, I can't talk. The grassroots type movement here. I'm going to continue that forward and continue the training that we've already begun and keep training myself. But I would encourage anyone who's considering looking at Ally. This has been just a wonderful tool for us. A small institution with a one-girl show running here, I had a tool that helped me get a good look into what we needed and really help us approach our training and professional development for this. And I'm excited what this tool has already begun to do. I even have faculty coming to me now going, hey, we're about to adopt a new textbook, but these guys don't have accessible videos online. You know, they're looking at their instructor supplemental resources. So I'm really excited that not only are we training folks, but we are, you know, preparing for what's coming in the future. So I'd like to say thanks for Ally, and I'm excited to see how you're going to grow and the new features that you're going to offer to us in the future.
Very cool. And Christopher, I mean, you guys have seen a lot of progress now. Or how do you make the next jump? Are you trying to get up to 95%, or what? How are you kind of thinking about your goals and what comes next?
Yeah, so we've made such a huge jump. There's it's going to probably be more difficult making the rest of that bridging that. You know, one of the things that I've been pondering doing is hosting a lunch and making some sort of like delete your files day, because one of the things that keeps the scores down is old files. You know, syllabus from 2 years ago, because you just keep copying your course forward, and that the one you have now maybe is accessible, but not the one you used last quarter, the quarter before, the quarter for that, or some old file that you transferred over from the last learning management system that that we used in 2011. Like, so just really digging into the files and just deleting all the stuff they're not using, I think is going to drive scores up. So that's my strategy for trying to get a little bit higher score and game it.
It's funny that you mentioned that, and it looks like Christopher Phillips is still on the call. Links up here. So Christopher Phillips actually developed a tool at Utah State, and he's a Canvas institution to help them flag and then delete unused content in Canvas. Yep, there he is. He dropped it in before me. He's always got it handy. There you go. Hoping to make it available by the end of the year. So that's a really good one to I think bringing it to Canvas's attention is a nice one. Dina, it seems to be a little bit less of a problem with the Blackboard stuff, because the check the content that's linked into the course, whereas like Canvas, all the files, but we can definitely explore the possibility of deleting content and refreshing stuff in Blackboard. We're just at 12. I want to give Eric an opportunity to jump in there. What's next in your
certainly. I think just continuing to do what we're doing, as Dina said too, you know, to promote inclusive education wherever possible, and to encourage faculty to not think of this as a burden or what have you, or even having the perspective of being an optional activity, like, oh, if I have time, I'll maybe look at the accessibility. But no, let's do this purposefully. Let's, you know, increase the accessibility of all our files, which actually helps our DSR office to be more efficient. So continuing down the path of, you know, promoting, we are also looking at maybe some strategies to come alongside faculty a little more deliberately, you know, so that they're not sort of left on their own, you know, especially around, which we actually already do that for courses that have students with documented disabilities, but, you know, especially for our online courses, you know, how do we, you know, connect maybe, and we have a digital studio here on our e-learning team that have, you know, we have a large number of student assistants that can help with PDF files, for example, and properly tagging them and running some of those accessibility checkers through some of the other maybe more difficult content to handle. So we can do that. We're also connecting Panopto to our accessibility work with captioning. So working through that, and then finally just kind of looping back to what was already kind of talked about as far as, you know, where are these old files? Good idea to do some spring cleaning there. We've been seeing a side benefit of just even cleaning up our own files, because the way Ally works with Blackboard is in the content collection there, anything without an indicator is probably not linked to your course, which means those are old files, right? So we've been having some success working with some faculty, even among our, you know, our own team here, to help purge some of that old content that's just not valuable and not linked. So all of that to say, I mean, we're trying to walk down the pathway to inclusion here, and it's just great to be part of a panel here and on a group of colleagues and peers nationwide that's, you know, treating this topic as serious as it needs to be. So appreciate the opportunity to speak with you today.
And we very, very much appreciate the panelists for taking the time today and talking about their experiences. It's been really, really insightful. I know for the people that were on the call, I'm sure you all got a lot out of it, and certainly the folks that couldn't join are going to get a lot out of the recording. I'll be posting it in the forum stream, so it'll be available there, captioned, of course. And just for next week, we are going to have another open office hours. I'm hoping we can kind of circle back to some of the research stuff that we talked about earlier, and then start to think more about how we can kind of measure impact on campuses. And we got to talk a little bit about usage data and things like that today, and how we can continue to expand that. The team is really looking at ways to improve the institutional report and the kinds of data and feedback that we're providing there for the admins. And so it'd be a good time to, if you have feedback or things you're thinking about there, very excited to talk about it. So again, thanks everybody for joining. This has been fantastic, and I wish you all a happy Halloween. Take care.